I fell in love with the Sagebrush Country long ago, and I love to play in it. I love to run in it, hike in it. Just a beautiful place to be. It's quiet.
The trails and the rock here is incredible. Several of these trails I could probably ride every day for the rest of my life and not get bored.
The seas of sage are amazing. It's part of our our national landscape. I love the challenges of the ups and downs and the sagebrush in general. You get different lines of sight. We're pretty lucky to have this in our backyard.
Recreation is such a huge part of how people interact with lands in the West. In 2020, more than 73 million people visited BLM managed lands. People treasure public lands, and the sagebrush ecosystem found there really holds a special place in people's hearts.
Recreation for a while was deemed this sort of completely sustainable activity that's great for the economy. Conversation's shifting to where we're learning that any form of recreation on public lands, whether it's you're hiking and you're driving to the trailhead or you're mountain biking from home or you name it, has an impact. And I think it's becoming that much more apparent when we start to consider things like the spread of invasives.
Invasive annual grasses is the #1 threat to this ecosystem. We have seen it just encroach. Once those invasive grasses like cheatgrass come into a system, you have a fire frequency that just upped itself 100 times over.
In the past 20 years, 15 million acres of sagebrush rangeland have gone up in smoke. Every year, human activity causes more than 80% of all wildfires in the United States.
Once you get into that fire cycle, it is very difficult to stop. And so you've basically lost everything. It can be completely devastating.
It's really going to take everyone working together to keep everyone safe outside and to protect the places we love to play.
The West, we see it as this huge expanse of public lands that we can all play on and recreate, and it's true. We can, but we all have to do it responsibly.
There are huge efforts happening between federal, state, and local governments, alongside nonprofit organizations and industry, to address the threats of fire and invasives to Sagebrush Country. But we can't do it without recreators.
As trail users, say the easiest thing that everyone can do to help with not spreading invasives is learn the invasives that you have in your area. There's easy resources out there to figure out what is invasive. If you do happen to recognize where there are invasives, that's the most important area to leash your dog, to not trample off the trail. And then if you do happen to go through areas that are sort of lush with some of those invasives, checking your shoes, checking your socks, checking your clothing afterwards, just to make sure you're not spreading it.
As motorized users, we have a huge part being stewards of our trail and taking care of this ecosystem. A few items that we do is you stay the trail. When anytime you stop, you make sure that you're not parked in any sort of high grass or sagebrush. When we're towing to the campsites or to the loading site, we make sure that we're not dragging any chains on our trailer. Everyone has to run a spark arrestor, so that mitigates fire risk coming out of your exhaust. And just making sure that your bike is in good running condition.
Each and every one of us has a responsibility. When we come out here to recreate, we should all be cognizant of the impacts that we're having and do our very best to minimize those.
There's so much recreators can do to protect the landscapes they enjoy. By planning ahead, doing research on restrictions, and understanding your equipment to prevent a fire, And it's important to leave no trace, to check your gear, your pets, and yourself so you don't carry seeds and weeds to new areas, and help build an inclusive outdoors where everyone feels welcome on public land and can enjoy healthy ecosystems.